Hi children, what about your study level? Did you study everything? Okay, in last classes we discussed so many things. Did you study everything? Did you understand everything? Have you feel any doubt from any part? You ask me, I have no problem. I think it is a simple chapter. Okay, in last classes we discussed many things, sectors, then division of sectors, unemployment, disguised unemployment, then how to protect the workers, how to create more employment opportunity, how can we divide the economy, organized and unorganized sectors, how government protect the unorganized sectors, and so on. Today we want to discuss our last topic from this chapter. What is that? Can you say? Nasir, can you read the heading? Okay, sectors in terms of ownership, public and private sectors. What is our next topic? Sectors in terms of ownership. Sectors in terms of ownership. Here is two types. What are included? Public and private. Okay. Public and private sectors. What are included? Public and private sectors. Public and private sectors. Sectors in terms of ownership, public and private sectors. Okay. Another way of classifying economy. What is here used? Another way of classifying economy. Firstly, we classify the economy mainly. Here is three sectors: primary, secondary and tertiary. Then we classify the economy organized and unorganized. That's why here is another way, that is public and private. What is the two? Public and private. Okay. Another way of classifying economic activities into sectors could be on the basis of who owns assets and is responsible for the delivery of services. In the public sector, the government owns most of the assets and provide all the services. Listen, another way of classify the economy on the basis of who owned the asset. Asset means suttukal. Okay, listen. That these sectors could be on the basis of who owns assets and is responsible for the delivery of services. Okay, the responsible for the delivery of services, who owns the asset, on the basis of we can classify these two categories. What are the two categories? Public and private. In the public sector, the government owns most of the asset and provide all the services. In case of public sector, who owns most of the asset? Government. Then who provide most of the services? Government. Okay, government provided most of the services. Then most of the asset ownership, that also government. Underline that. In the public sector, the government owns most of the assets and provide all the services. In the private sector, ownership of assets and delivery of services in the hands of private individuals or companies. Just opposite. The assets ownership and other services under the individual, that is the private sector. That also want to underline. Listen, in the private sector, ownership of assets and delivery of services is in the hands of private individual or companies. Railways or post offices is an example of public sector. Public sector example, railway and post office. These are the examples. Railway and post office, etc. Not only these two. Okay, railway and post office. Then railways or post office are an example of the public sector, whereas the companies like Tata Iron and Steel Company Limited, shortly we can say TISCO, Tata Iron and Steel Company Limited, Tata Iron and Steel Company Limited, shortly we can say TISCO. Then Reliance Industries Limited, RIL, Reliance Industry Limited. These are the examples of private sectors. Okay, maybe you expect this type of example. Can you one example the private sector? What is that? Here is a railway, a post office. Can you one another example in is of private sector? TISCO, RIL. The TISCO Tata Iron and Steel Company. Then Reliance Industries Limited. Activities in the private sector are guided by the motive to earn profit. Activities in the private sector are guided by the motive to earn profit. Their motive to earn profit. What is their motive? To earn profit. Private companies' main motive, main object or main aim, that is the profit. Okay. Then to get such services, we have to pay money to these individuals and companies. The purposes of the public sector is not just to earn profit. Listen, in case of private sector, their main purpose or main objective, not objective, main objective is or main aim or main goal, maximum profit. But in case of public, that is not. Okay, there is well-being. Listen, the purpose of the public sector is not just to earn profit. Governments raise money through taxes and other ways to meet expenses on the services rendered by it. Okay, government spend a lot of money. From where they get this amount? Collecting taxes. Okay, listen, government raise money through taxes and other ways to meet expenses on the services rendered by it. Modern day, government spend on a whole range of activities. What are these activities? Why do government spend on such activities? Okay, government here is provide many facilities. Okay, especially we know that nowadays here is going on a big problem. Government give full support from their own side. That means here is a good medical facility or health facility. Okay, government provide everything. Then we know that education facilities. Okay, these are our basic needs. They provide the basic services. Who provide? Government provided. These all basic services are also included in which category? The public sector category. Okay, there are several things needed by the society as a whole, but which the private sector will not provide at a reasonable cost. Private sector is ready to provide these type of facilities. We know that here is private schools, private hospitals. Okay, but there is some reasonable cost or they want to pay some amount because their main aim, what is that? Profit. Their main aim is a profit. Okay, the private sectors maximum want to increase their profit. Listen, there are several things needed by the society as a whole, but which the private sector will not provide at a reasonable cost. Why? Some of these need spending large sum of money which is beyond the capacity of the private sector. Okay, here is beyond the capacity of the private sector. What do you mean by beyond? Beyond means adinumappuram. The capacity of the private sector, beyond the capacity of private sector, these need spending a large sum of money which is beyond the capacity of private sector. Listen, several things needed by the society as a whole, but which the private sector will not provide at a reasonable cost, because that amount is a large amount, or there is a large sum of money which is beyond the capacity of a private sector. Also, collecting money from thousands of people who use these facilities is not easy. Another important thing, the collecting money. Okay, they spend a lot, they want to collect that amount, but it is not an easy job. Listen, collecting money from thousands of people who use these facilities is not easy. Even if they do provide these things, they would charge a high rate of their use. Examples are construction of roads, bridges, railways, harbors, generating electricity, providing irrigation through dams, etc. Thus, government have to undertake such a heavy spending and ensure that these facilities are available for everyone. Listen, here is a constructing railway, constructing dams, and also bridges, harbor, generating electricity. These type of facilities who provide here is a government provide these facilities, because here want to start these projects. Here need a large sum of money. The private sector, they can't spend a lot of money, because this amount beyond their capacity. Whose capacity? The private sector capacity. And also they can't collect a huge amount from the people. It is not an easy job. On that occasion here is government spend a lot of money, but there is government's aim here want to provide these facilities to all. There is no classification. Listen, I repeat, this government have to undertake such heavy spending and ensure that these facilities are available for everyone. Available for everyone, not only a group of person, not only a specified category. Here, government provide these facilities to everyone. Okay. Then, there are some activities which the government has to support. The private sector may not continue their production or business unless government encourages it. There are some activities which the government has to support the private. Listen, in which occasion the private sector may not continue their production or business unless government encourages it. For example, selling electricity at the cost of generation may push up the cost of production of goods in many industries. Many units, especially small-scale units, might have to shut down. Certain occasion, government provides some facilities, or government provide the private sectors. Okay, what is the reason? Because they can't bear everything. On that occasion, government want to encourage this type of people. Government gives some support. Okay, here is one example. Which example? Selling electricity at the cost of production of goods in many industries. Selling electricity at the cost of generation may push up the cost of production of goods in the many industries. Then another thing is the small scale units might have to shut down. Government here steps in by producing and supplying electricity at a rate which these industries can afford. Government has to bear part of the cost. Okay, certain occasion government government is ready to bear the part of the cost. That means the government is ready to provide something to support these groups. The small scale industry needs some electricity. On that occasion, government is ready to support this category. Is it clear? Okay. Similarly, the government in India buys wheat and rice from farmers at a fair price. Another thing, government want to support the farmers. The government there is a fair price. Okay, government വില കെട്ടിയെടുക്കുകയാണ്. ചിലപ്പോൾ which condition? The lower rate condition. On that occasion, government want to support the farmers. But government give there is a fair price. The government in India buys wheat and rice from farmers at a fair price. This it stores in its godown and sell at a lower price to consumers through ration shop. Government firstly buy these items. What are the items? Rice, wheat, etc. And government provide a fair price. Then they collect these things in godowns and it distributed through ration shops. To whom? To consumers. ആർക്ക് വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണ് ഇത് ഡിസ്ട്രിബ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യണത്? കൺസ്യൂമേഴ്സിന്. Listen, this it store it in godowns and sell at a lower price to consumers through ration shops. Now we know that here is on lockdown situation, government provide some facilities through ration shop, freely given some kit. Okay, we know that there is so many grocery items included and also extra rice, etc. Okay, we know one thing, that grocery items collect from other states. Government buy these items at a fair price and freely give to the people. Is it clear? That type of example is most suitable for this occasion. Is it clear? Okay. Then here now also here is going on, we know that in every government school there also online class. Government provide one facility through media. There is one channel, Victor's channel, everything provided there. That means all classes included there. And also some students, I think 1 to 7th, okay, up to 7th standard, they can't go their school. But we know one thing, there is going on providing some food facilities. That's why government is ready to give this rice and grocery items. Okay, that means the another kit for the that type of students, government school students. Okay, that also government provide some facilities or how to protect this type of people. Is it clear? Okay, that also related to this. Then you have read about in the chapter of food security in class 9th. Maybe you already read these chapters in the earlier classes. I mean when you studied in 9th. Then the government has to bear some of the cost. In this way, the government support both farmers and consumers. Listen, in that occasion, firstly, government collect wheat and rice from where? From farmers. Government give fair prices. Then at lower price, government is ready to distribute these items through ration shop. But here is the same time government supported the two types of people. One is the cultivators. Who are that category? Farmers. At the same time consumers. So producers and consumers, farmers and consumers. There are a large number of activities which are the primary responsibility of the government. The government must spend on these. Providing health and education facility for all is one example. We already discussed it. Government provide health and education facilities. We have discussed some of these issues in the first chapter. Okay, we already discussed earlier comparing to other state in case of literacy rate, health condition, everything. In Kerala, that is the higher level because government provide these facilities freely. We know that free and compulsory education, and also here is health facilities, etc. Okay, then running proper schools and providing quality education, then particularly elementary education, is the duty of the government. Okay, listen, here is running proper schools and providing quality education. Government's responsibility. We know that very qualified experts, very qualified teachers. Government selected very qualified teachers and they give their services. Okay, but here is running proper schools and providing quality education, particularly elementary education, is the duty of the government. India's size of illiterate population is one of the largest in the world. Okay, listen, India's size of illiterate population is one of the largest in the world. Illiterate population. Similarly, we know that nearly half of India's children are malnourished and a quarter of them are critically ill. Then another thing here is nearly half of India's children are malnourished. You know what is the malnourished or undernourished? what is that? Lack of nutrition, പോഷകാഹാര കുറവുള്ളവർ, malnourished. And a quarter of them critically ill. Quarter means നമ്മൾ ക്വാർട്ടർ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്, ഓക്കെ, കാൽഭാഗം. ഓക്കെ, then here we have read about the infant mortality rate. The infant mortality rate of Odisha 87, Madhya Pradesh 85 is higher than that of the poorest region of the world, such as the African countries. Government also needs to pay attention to aspect of human development such as availability of safe drinking water, housing facilities for the poor, and food and nutrition. Government want to give attention in the aspect of the human development. What are included the human development? Want to provide here is for human development. Yes, safe drinking water, pure and safe drinking water. Then housing facilities for the poor. Okay, poor people want to housing facility. Then food and nutrition. It is also the duty of the government to take care of the poorest and most ignored region of the country through increased spending in such areas. Okay, here certain areas there is not available these facilities, health facilities, education facilities. But government want to find what are the areas included in this category and promote that area or promote the life situation in that area. Is it clear? Okay, listen. But here the most important thing, two category, one is the public, another is the private. Okay, we can classify the economy on the basis of asset and on the basis of the most of the services. We can classify mainly two, public and private. When you hear this word public, you think about under the government control, that we call public ownership. Public ownership speciality, most of the things or most of the services or most of the asset under the government. Then private sector, we know that the assets and the services under the private, that means an individual or a group of individual, that is the private sector. Here is examples of the public sector and the private sector. Railway and post office is the example of the public sector. TISCO, that means Tata Iron and Steel Company and Reliance Industries Limited, RIL, these are the examples of the private companies. Then here is certain occasion government support the private sectors or the private companies, and also here is government provide some facilities, especially government support the farmers and consumers. Here is one example, government buy grains like rice and wheat at fair price from the farmers and give at lower price to consumers. Okay, that only. Then here is a summing up. In this chapter we have looked at ways of classifying economic activities into some meaningful groups. Okay, we already discussed on the basis of economic activities how can we classify the sectors, primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. Then we classify organized and unorganized. Then lastly we discussed public and private sector. Okay, one way of doing this is to examine whether the activity relate to the primary, secondary or tertiary sectors. The data for India for the last 30 years shows that while goods and services produced in the tertiary sector contribute the most to GDP. We already discussed the contribution in the in case of GDP, the higher contribution from tertiary sector. Then the employment remains in the primary. Now also the more employment provide primary sector, that is the agriculture sector. We have also seen what all can be done for increasing employment opportunity in the country. We already discussed how can we solve the problem, how can protect our workers. Then another classification is to consider whether people are working in organized or unorganized sectors. Most people are working in the unorganized sectors and protection is necessary for them. We also looked at the difference between the private and public activities and why it is important for public activities to focus on the certain areas, because now also here is some illiterate people, then here is malnourished, and also here is some areas very there is not safe drinking water, poor household situation. That is, we want to eradicate this problem, but government want to give more concentration in these regions. Okay, our second chapter from economics, that also over. Then another procedures. What are the another procedures? Reading, writing, then study. Okay, but to be continued on next class. I mean, next class we want to discuss a new geography chapter. So you want to take on that time your geography textbook. Okay, thank you.